Okay, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. As always, just give me a quick thumbs up if you can hear and see everything okay, and then we'll get started. Testing, testing, testing. Cool. Looks like we're good to go. That delay, by the way, is the difference between when I speak and when I can actually hear you. So there's about 15 seconds of purgatory where I don't know if I'm visible or hearable or anything like that. Okay, thank you for joining. I know a lot of you were here last night on that 8-hour stream where we basically went over everything. Just wanted to give some updates and some new results as they've come in today. So as far as the Senate goes, we just got some bad news in Wisconsin, and that is that Ron Johnson has defeated Mandela Barnes by just under a 1.5 points. So that will unfortunately stay as a Republican-held seat. Right now, the Democrats have been able to flip one seat. That's Pennsylvania with John Fetterman. We're waiting on the results from 3 more seats to see who's going to ultimately take control of the Senate. We have Georgia, where it is now officially gone to a runoff. So Raphael Warnock does lead Herschel Walker by about 0.5 point. But with the votes remaining, it's not looking like he's going to be able to overcome that 50% threshold that you need to avoid a runoff. So here we are again, going to a runoff on December 6th. So set your calendars, make sure that your conservative uncles come to Thanksgiving and you talk all about it over the dinner table, because we are not done yet. However, we're not sure if that's going to be the race that determines control, because we're waiting on 2 other races, that is in Nevada and Arizona. Both of those races. Let's start with Arizona. Mark Kelly is currently leading Blake Masters by about 5 points, by exactly 5 points. That has 69% of the result in. So we'll still continue to wait for the remaining, 31% of those votes to come in. As far as Nevada is concerned, this one is a little different. Adam Laxalt, between last night and this morning, has taken the lead, 49.9 to 47.2. The votes that remain, now, by the way, that's about a 23,000 vote margin. The votes that remain are mail ballots from Clark County. That is the Democratic stronghold. They're mail ballots from Clark County that came in, I believe, yesterday and that are still in the mail. So any ballots that were dropped off or mailed yesterday or are still in transit that hadn't arrived by Election Day still are yet to be counted. Those will skew Democratic. The question becomes then, are they enough to overcome this, let's see, what did I just say it was? This deficit of 20, what, I just lost that race. Here we go. That deficit of about 23,000 votes. So we'll see what happens in that race. But, we'll just wait for those mail ballots to come in. That's going to be the name of the game in a lot of these races. We're still waiting on mail ballots to come in from both New York and from California. Those ballots can be counted for up to a week after Election Day. So hang on. We'll still have those results coming in from Arizona, Nevada, California, and New York. Unfortunately, it looks like the weakest parts of the candidates, as far as candidates are concerned, for the Democrats have been in both Florida and New York. New York had a major breakdown. A lot of the close races in New York did go Republicans' way. I believe right now, as far as the House is concerned, it's looking like Republicans have netted 9 seats. So any way you cut this, it's not, there's no, there's not even the suggestion of a red wave. In the end, it may be, they're being NBC has it projected as a 9-point gain for Republicans when all said and done. It could go either way. The projection is +9 with give or take 7. So really to say, maybe the slightest Republican lead. In any case, no red wave, but obviously if we want any hope of passing any legislation, we do need to hold the House. So a bunch of those races are still yet to be called. We have a number of those races in California. So let's just take a look real quick at House races in California, since I know that is a major question mark. We have 18 races not called. There's no point in really going over the numbers right now because we have so many ballots that have yet to be counted. But one race that I did want to, I have a lot of people asking about a few of them. Katie Porter is currently leading 50.3% to 49.7%. Only about half of those votes are in. So we'll continue to get those votes, as they continue to come in. We'll continue to keep an eye on them. But again, if you're looking at any time before pretty much this time next week, it's going to kind of be useless because we're waiting on so many ballots still to come in. And as ballots continue to come in, they should skew more Democratic. That's the hope. With that said, that is the hope. We have House District 22, where Valadeo is a Republican. He's leading by 8 points, 54 to 46. We'll see if there's enough Democratic votes to bring his Democratic opponent over the finish line. So a lot to keep an eye on in California. Let's take a look at gubernatorial races. We're still waiting on a couple. Last night we spoke about Beto. Beto lost in Texas. Ron DeSantis won in Florida. Stacey Abrams lost in Georgia to Brian Kemp, and we lost in Ohio. We did win in Florida, which is good news because Doug Mastriano is a lunatic. And we won in Wisconsin, where Tony Evers is one major line of defense against a Republican legislature, which, by the way, Republicans were not able to secure a supermajority in that legislature. So that is good news. That means that we do have Governor Evers as this last resort, this last force of protection in that state from the worst extremist excesses of the Republican Party there. We're waiting on gubernatorial results in 3 states here, 3 major states. There's also Alaska, but I wouldn't. Alaska is going to likely be Republican. So in Arizona, Katie Hobbs is leading Kari Lake by about 0.6 of a point, 50.3 to 49.7. So we'll keep an eye on that. In Nevada, Sisolak is trailing by about 5 points to Lombardo. So Sisolak is the Democrat. He is the incumbent. He's trailing right now. Again, we'll see if those vote totals, when they come in from Clark County, those mail ballots that are still pending right now, that are still outstanding, are enough to close that 5-point gap. Right now, there is about 17 plus 23, 40,000 vote difference. So we'll see what the breakdown of those votes is and how many votes we're actually waiting for. You can generally tell how many votes are going to go to each person because the breakdown's been relatively constant from these mail ballots. So once we find out how many votes remain, then we can determine much more easily whether he's going to have enough votes to overcome that deficit. So that's where we are at right now. Other good news out of Michigan is that the Democrats were able to flip the state House and the state Senate. State Senate was flipped for the first time since 1983, so that's some excellent news. That means that, and along with a constitutional amendment protecting abortion rights in that state, so all good news from Michigan, and generally good news from the Rust Belt there, other than that Senate result in which Ron Johnson was able to fend off the challenge from Mandela Barnes. I believe, let's see if we could, if I have any other, it looks like Brad Raffensperger is speaking to the media or getting ready to speak to the media right now. What he's going to say is effectively that this Georgia Senate runoff is going to a runoff on December 6th. So we have that to look forward to. If you have any questions right now about any specific races, you can throw them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. Just wanted to give a general update on how things are looking right now. But it is close. We'll keep an eye on these Nevada votes. As soon as we know the vote totals that remain, then we will be able to determine whether both Sisolak will have enough to close that gap and remain the Democratic governor of that state, and also whether Catherine Cortez Masto will be able to hold on to her lead and keep her Senate seat. The top line is that of the 3 seats that are still outstanding, then of the 3 seats still outstanding for the Senate, Democrats only need to win, I believe we just need to win 2. Alaska. Yeah, I would rather be Democrats than Republicans right now. We have a lead in Nevada that we have to hold on to. Herschel Walker is trailing Raphael Warnock, so we'll see what happens in that runoff. But Democrats are in a good spot right now in what history said and the economic, overall economic outlook said should be a bad night for Democrats. Someone asked, is the House of Representatives going to be under Democratic control still? We won't know. We won't know for about a week. We're continuing to wait. We're continuing to wait for these mail ballots to come in. I forgot one of the most important things, and that is Lauren Boebert. So we're still waiting for her race to come in. Let me just make sure we didn't get any calls for Lauren Boebert real quick. So it doesn't look like anyone's called the race for Lauren Boebert. So here's what I did. I went to, let me pull this up right now. Let me pull up the Boebert race. So that's Colorado's 3rd congressional district. I did some math here. So yes, this has not been called. There's 90% of the vote is in. Lauren Boebert is trailing by 0.8 of a point with 90% of the vote in. So I did a breakdown. I used New York Times, and I took all of the counties that weren't fully reporting, and I tweeted this as well, so you can follow along with me. Let me drop a copy of my tweet in the chat here. Okay, I just pinned my tweet in the chat so you can follow along. I took all of the vote totals that were still outstanding. And I so if they said, we have 82% reporting, I extrapolated that using the same vote breakdown to figure out what votes would remain for both candidates if we use the exact same vote breakdown. So let's say in a certain county, in Rio Blanco County, Boebert is winning 82-18, and they have 82% reporting. I extrapolated that to show what it would be if they had 100% reporting using those exact same percentages. Adam Frisch would still win. So, this is like a super rudimentary project, but ultimately the important thing is he's in a good spot right now, and I feel like I would rather be Frisch than Boebert, especially since her seat was rated safe Republican, but we'll see what happens. I mean, that's the kind of race that we need because we have lost some races that we shouldn't have lost in New York, for example. And thanks to Ron DeSantis's gerrymander in Florida, we also it was baked in that we would lose a bunch of seats that he created that were, in his gerrymander that was so extreme, even the Republican state legislature wasn't comfortable passing that one. So we'll see what happens in terms of we'll see what happens in terms of that race. That one we'll definitely keep a close eye on. Sarah Palin, someone asked about. Sarah Palin, it looks like that race right now, Mary Peltola has a pretty comfortable lead. Let me pull that one up. Mary Peltola is leading 47% to Sarah Palin's 26%, and Nick Begich's 24%. That's important because it'll go to a runoff. So it'll go to ranked choice voting. So Peltola will likely be number one. Sarah Palin right now will be number two. When they split Nick Begich's votes, Mary Peltola will just need a very small fraction of them to win outright. So she's in really good shape. I would much rather be Mary Peltola, the Democrat, than Sarah Palin in Alaska. Okay, let's talk about Arizona. A lot of people are asking about Arizona. So right now, Katie Hobbs is leading Kari Lake 50.3 to 49.7. She has a 6/10 of a vote lead over Kari Lake, but there's still 31% of the votes remaining. So there's no way that we can adequately or accurately predict what the outcome of this race is going to be. We're just going to have to keep an eye on it and wait for these votes to continue rolling in. It looks like the actual margin is about 12,000 votes between the two, and there are 806,000 votes remaining. So again, keep an eye on Arizona, but it's not looking like we're going to have a call right now. That is the gubernatorial race. If we look at the Senate, Mark Kelly is leading Blake Masters 51.5 to 46.5. So it looks like Mark Kelly, that is a 5-point lead. Mark Kelly is running about 5 points or 4.5 points ahead of Katie Hobbs. As far as the House is concerned, right now there are still 3 races that haven't been called, and Republicans did pick up a seat. They did knock off Tom O'Halloran in Arizona's 2nd congressional district. So that's bad news, but at the same time, we have in Arizona's 1st congressional district, we're currently leading by about 51 to 49, by about 2 points with 70% of the vote in. That would be a flip, so we could even everything out if that's the case. So we'll see what happens in Arizona as those votes continue to come in. What should Florida Dems do next time around? Maybe not elect a Republican. Here's the thing. Our gubernatorial candidate was a former Republican, and Val Demings, who I think relatively speaking, she did a fine job. But I mean, her campaign was predicated on the fact that she was a police chief, and I think when we tack to the right, when we run away from the Democratic agenda, which is popular, we don't get rewarded for it. And so, when you have somebody who is campaigning on the fact that he used to be a Republican, and you're obviously vying for those Republican votes, people who are Republicans are probably going to vote for the Republican over the Republican light. Meanwhile, you have progressives that are winning out in states and districts across the country. You have people that are running on unapologetically progressive values, running on protecting women's reproductive rights, running on expanding healthcare for as many people as possible, running on clamping down on gun violence, and all of these like unapologetically progressive platform planks, and they're winning. And meanwhile, we have, every time we run these, like, well, I used to be a Republican, well, I'm basically a Republican, people who find these quasi-Republicans appealing are just going to vote for the full-blown Republican when given the choice. So, in terms of Florida, I think that we can't be afraid to, like, run on our agenda, and especially as far as these culture war issues are concerned, we shouldn't run away from these culture war issues. We should win the culture war issues, because we're on the right side of all of them. Americans don't want reproductive rights stripped away. Americans don't want gun violence. Americans want an assault weapons ban and stronger background checks. Americans want more health care. Americans want weed legalized. Americans want student loan debt forgiven. Americans want tax fairness. They want higher tax rates for the ultra rich. They don't want to give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires. Every single plank that our party represents is popular with the vast majority of Americans. And so this idea that we're going to, like, run away from everything just because Fox News and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham are wailing about crime on a nightly basis, that obviously didn't pan out for them. Worrying about running an entire campaign, if you're Fox News, on litter boxes in bathrooms for kids and basically outright transphobia clearly didn't work. And so instead of just these bullshit culture war issues that they're waging, lean into everything. We have the more popular policy platform, so lean into that stuff. If they want to talk about transphobia, let them. It's clearly not resonating with the voters. Election denialism is clearly not resonating with the voters. So if they want to run on that stuff, that's great. But voters are rewarding Democrats for running on the policy positions that they actually enacted while they were in office. That's my rant on Florida and the Democratic Party more broadly. I don't think we should be afraid of all this stuff to the point where we have to, like, constantly seed the narrative to Republicans and be so worried that they're treating Americans like they're idiots and just running on pronouns and transphobia and litter boxes in elementary school bathrooms. It's just ridiculous. People can see through that shit. And by the way, the youngest generation, Gen Zs, broke for Democrats like 60-30. It was so overwhelming. These are the people whose support we need to continue to garner. These are the people who we need to continue to make sure that we're getting their support, that they're continuing to turn out, and that we're continuing to enact policies that draw them to the polls, like canceling student loan debt, like focusing on the climate, like preventing more school shootings. So I think that, all of these things are good lessons. And of course, the number one thing, which I hope to some degree we're able to do, but if we're not able to hold the House, it's going to be increasingly difficult, is to pass a law banning partisan gerrymandering. We need election reform, and we need it pretty seriously. But the good news is that just about the entire slate of Trump-endorsed candidates lost and was rebuked. I mean, there were election deniers in a raft of states. I don't know that any of them actually won. Let me see if I have a comprehensive list of all the election deniers who lost. Here we go. Doug Mastriano lost. Dan Cox in Maryland lost. Paul LePage, who used to be the governor of Maine, he lost. Lee Zeldin in New York lost. Jeff Deal in Mass lost. Scott Jensen lost in Minnesota. Tim Michaels lost in Wisconsin. Tudor Dixon lost in Michigan. So, I mean, just race after race after race. Then there's the Secretary of State candidates. Jim Marchin is likely to lose. I think he's running the farthest behind every other Democratic candidate in that state. So these election deniers, who basically predicated their entire campaigns on their disdain for democracy, weren't rewarded by the democratic process or the people. So that's where we're at right now. Here's what I would ask real quick, just a moment of shameless self-promotion. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel and you want to continue following along with me while I do these election result updates, please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free, but it is the best way to support what I do, to support my work. Beyond that, beyond these live streams on my channel, I'll also do interviews. Just last week, I interviewed Bernie Sanders. I've interviewed President Biden, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin. So I'll continue doing those interviews, and finally, I do breaking news videos every day. So definitely subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed. I'm seeing people say that Lauren Boebert lost, but I'm not seeing any calls for the Boebert race. I'll call it. I'll take a look again, but I would be shocked if anybody called it in the last 10 minutes. Yeah, it's not looking like there's any results for the Lauren Boebert race. Trust me, when I know, you'll know. I'll do a live specifically to let you know about the Lauren Boebert results. But so we'll see about that. In any case, I'm going to end it. Yeah, so I'm seeing people say that she hasn't. So I'm going to end it here. Again, if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. That is the best way to support this channel. I appreciate you guys tuning in. As soon as I have more results, more major results, either from Arizona, Nevada, or, of course, Colorado's 3rd Congressional District with Lauren Boebert, I'll come on and give you an update. But one more quick thing for people asking right now in the comments here. A trifecta. We've secured 2 more trifectas. That was in Maryland, where a Democrat replaced the Republican governor, and in Massachusetts. So that's 2 more trifectas in the states. Republicans gained no trifectas. Republicans mostly held. Democrats were able to stave off Republican supermajorities, as I mentioned before, in Wisconsin, by virtue of not allowing them to holding their losses to holding Democratic losses so that they wouldn't have a supermajority. We, of course, reelected Governor Evers, so he would be able to veto any untoward legislation that Republicans put forward. So that's just some good news on the trifecta front. Democrats gain 2 trifectas this election cycle, which goes against all conventional thinking that in a midterm cycle where one party controls every single branch of government, so to speak, both chambers of Congress and the White House, this should have been, history would say that this should have been a complete wipeout for Republicans against the Democrats. That isn't what happened. Democrats actually gained in a number of seats. There were a few warning signs, both in Florida and New York. Good that we know that, so that we can take a look and figure out what needs to be fixed in those places. Another major loser, just to finish with this, to button this off, is Donald Trump, because. And this isn't just me saying it as someone who has not that much love for the guy, but all of his candidates that he promoted, all of his high-profile candidates that he promoted, other than J.D. Vance, were losers. And so he had teased an announcement on the 15th, I think that's Monday, at Mar-a-Lago. Everybody clearly thinks and believes that he's going to be announcing his run for president in 2024. What a terrible time to do that this would be. This would be maybe the worst time possible, because all he's shown is that his brand of MAGA Republicanism is an albatross on every one of these Republicans' necks, and that election denialism is a losing issue, that this lunatic fringe MAGA nonsense is a losing issue. The Republicans who ran on this shit lost overwhelmingly. The only one who eked by was J.D. Vance, and he's running in Ohio. If you can't win Ohio, he had every advantage going for him, and he only barely won. Tim Ryan put up a great race, but in any case, one of the biggest losers, if not the biggest of the night, was Donald Trump. I'm actually working on a video right now where I'm gonna discuss what some Trump advisors said on TV about Trump possibly keeping quiet for the next month while we wait for this Georgia runoff to play itself out. So if that doesn't give you any indication of the toxicity of Donald Trump, nothing will. So with that said, thank you for watching. Throw me a subscribe and stay tuned because I'll do more of these as we continue to get more results. Thanks, everybody.